Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's episode of the Pantheon Podcast, the show where we talk about Smite, esports, and everything relating to it. My name is Darkkai3, your host of the show, and with me, as per usual, I do have the wonderful AlphaJackal. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Just came home from work today and straight into the podcast recording. It's absolutely a perfect day so far.
Perfect day after work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I've come home from work now, so yeah, I've survived yet another day.
Okay, you're not at work anymore, so it's a good day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I had my driving theory test this morning, and that was fun. So there we go. But yes, this is the Pantheon Podcast, as I have said. So today we're going to be talking about a few things. We do have part 2 of a roster apocalypse. Roster apocalypse, part 2, the attack of the rosters, or as I prefer to call it, electric boogaloo. So we're going to talk a little bit about the roster changes. Then we have relegations happening in the near future, so we're going to be talking about those as well as our predictions of such. And then we can talk about what we expect to be in the patch, if there is a patch, assuming it's at the right time. So we're going to be discussing that. And if we've got time, how Season 4 is going for us at this point in time. So, AJ, do you want to take us straight into Roster Apocalypse Part 2?
Okay, so for the first part of the roster apocalypse, a lot of teams announced that they were disbanding or players leaving. Second part, as you may have guessed, teams are starting to form and are starting to announce who they are. And we're going to do something a little bit different this week. Instead of doing just North America and Europe, we also have a couple of team announcements for the Oceanic Pro League. The first one being Daddy Daycare, who's going to feature Sakara in the solo lane, Only Good at Solo in the jungle, Shreddles in the mid, Swifty in support, and then Gruff as your ADC. I think those two might be the wrong way around. And then there's also Giggle, going to be taking over the avant-garde spot. It's going to be L Chuckles in the solo lane, Yada in the jungle, iDivine in mid, Limits and Weave combining for that duo lane. They are some pretty strong rosters.
There are some nice teams. I mean, some of you may recognize some of the names. I think was it L Chuckles and iDivine were Avant.
Yes, they were.
So, I mean, if you've been watching any of the Oceanic Cup, you will probably recognise those guys. Good players.
Wait, hang on. Oceanic Cup?
Oceanic Games, you know what I mean? Oceanic Cup, can you imagine that?
I mean, you're relegated into basically the Carling Cup.
I don't understand football, I don't know what that means.
The Oceanic Pro League.
The Oceanic Pro League,
right.
There you go, the Oceanic Pro League. But there's some really good players there, and we have seen Oceania. Is that Oceania?
Oceania.
The Oceania team. So if you've been watching some of it, they have done some damn good matches, and I mean those along with Latin America and some of China, they've got some really good teams overall. So it's good. We need to give these guys a little bit of exposure and some credit. So keep an eye on these guys. These are going to be some good matches.
Yeah, I definitely would say if you're going to watch one of these teams, keep an eye on Giggle. They certainly will be one of the teams challenging for those top spots, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
But North America is next up on the list. There's not so much news in North America as there was in Europe in the past week. Just a couple of things specifically to do with Saw and Luminosity Gaming. So if you're a fan of those teams, news coming up just for those. To begin with, we're going to go for Saw, and they have a new roster confirmed. Dark, would like to take us through it.
Yes, so Saw's new roster is Jigs, Andinster, Vitium. Is it Vitium or Vetium?
I think it prefers Vitium.
I think it's Vitium, yeah. Vitium, Benji Smite, and Homie FA. That's a really good team. It's a really good team.
It's a really strong team, and this was one of the first announcements of the week in terms of all these teams coming out to play, especially the North American side. This was the first of the 2 ones.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I should probably say which roles they're all playing in. I mean, some of these guys you're going to assume, like, this is what they're playing as. So we've got Jigs as support, Visham as your ADC, Andinster as your mid, Homie SA as jungle, and Benji as solo. So it can go.
What caught a lot of people by surprise was the fact that Andinster is now playing mid, after playing jungle for, like, 3 years in a row, or something like that.
It's not the most surprising thing to happen of late, I'll be honest.
It's not the most surprising. We do have news on the most surprising thing coming up later on. But it's got a good trade-off in the fact that they do have Homie Effie in the jungle still.
Yeah. I mean, these guys are good players. This is going to be a damn good team to watch.
Yeah.
So
I honestly can't wait to see exactly how this team performs going into the spring split, because they don't have to play in relegations because they obviously qualified for the super regionals.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to these games. This,
Yeah,
I mean, this isn't the scariest team. Like, we've got some scary teams, but the teams that are going in at the moment are terrifying. Like, if you ever come up against these guys, just F6, because you've got no chance.
No, I think everyone's got a chance against these sort of teams, and honestly, I can't wait to see exactly how Anister performs in the mid lane.
Oh, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? I mean, he's done jungle for so long, but I mean, he's got the awareness. He knows the rotations. So, well, I say that everything's changed now, but I mean, there are certain roles which can probably transition into every other role quite easily. And I'd say jungle and support are the two which can transition fairly easily because they've already got all the awareness and stuff, so they can just work on that role in particular.
Yeah.
But I think there are certain roles you don't see people change from very often, and that's predominantly ADC, isn't it?
Yeah, the ADCs usually stay in ADC. One of the bigger ones in recent memory was, I think it was Confrey and Ataraxia back on Old Titan roster. They swapped over from ADC and solo for a fair bit. It was just for a split though, and then they swapped back, realizing that the other way was better.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there's nothing wrong with changing it and trying it.
Yeah,
sometimes it can work.
It can work sometimes, and hopefully this one does work out. But the thing that really shined for me from Anister was his ability to lead the team from that jungle, going in with initiation gods like Thor, like Susano, and just making sure that his team was on the forefront. You can't really do that so much with mid gods. There are very few that can really set the pace and tone of the game very early on. So potential weakness in playstyle there, but if he's going into this mid role, he's had it for a couple months now, as you would imagine they would have scrimmed for a couple months before announcing it.
Yeah.
So he's going to have practice on this, not in the SPL setting, but in scrim setting, so he'll have an idea of exactly how to control and dictate the game from this new position.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm hoping that he can transition quite well into it, and I'm looking for good things coming from this team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with Saw announcing their new roster, there was obviously one notable exception. That's Baskin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I think we all heard about Luminosity last week with changing up of things.
Yeah.
And we were discussing the possibility of Baskin joining the team. Well, turns out Baskin is joining the team, not as solo, as mid. And I did say before, it's not the most surprising thing that's happened. This is the most surprising thing that happened because Baskin is a solo lane beast. To see him go into mid, that's quite a transition.
I'm calling it now. He's going to bring out a couple warriors in mid and during the first split.
I call it Nike mid.
No. If somebody lets Nike through in a current state, then it's on them the fact that they've lost the game because of it.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter where you put her.
Nike is so strong. She's ridiculous. Yeah. She's actually ridiculous.
And it's really just a passive they really pick up for because it. Like 12% extra power, 7% extra movement speed. There's nothing in the game that compares to that.
I think I was talking to Blur about it, and he was talking about like how he DC'd never started the game, and his team still won with him DC'd just because of Nike's passive. It's crazy.
It's like having that sixth member on a team.
It is. It doesn't sound like something that would sway everything to such an extent. But Nike's passive is remarkably strong. I'd say it's possibly the strongest passive in the game.
And 12% extra damage, that's nothing to scoff at. If you've got a mage that's doing a 1,000 damage on their ultimate, that ultimate is now doing 1,120 damage. And that's something you can't really get outside of buying an expensive luxury late game item like a Soul Reaver or an Ethereal Staff.
Yeah. It is terrifying with having her. But I mean, if you can get her anywhere, just put her anywhere. Jungle, solo, mid, support, name it. Probably ADC, you never know.
I think some teams might bring that up. But back to Baskin in the mid role.
Yep.
I can't wait to see how this works out, because when he was playing in the solo lane, he was quite vocal on his teams and was always the one willing them to go on and wanting them to make sort of extravagant plays elsewhere on the map as he fought 4 versus 1. So him being in the mid lane now means he's going to be involved in more of those fights, and his situational awareness in those fights is what really made him shine as a solo laner.
Oh, yeah.
So to have that from the beginning rather than from 10-15 minutes in can only be a big boost to Luminosity.
It's going to be a boon, isn't it? I mean, as well, like you said, like he wants everyone else to make those extravagant plays while he's 1v4ing. Now he can make those extravagant plays. So, well, he already was making extravagant plays, but now we can make them in a wider setting.
He can make them from the beginning of the game.
Yeah, he can. Yeah.
But with Baskin coming on as well, there was also one more spot to fill. It wasn't any of the main roster. It was just a substitute role, and everybody loves him. Everybody knows him. It's Allied. It's going to be the substitute for LG.
It's a good pickup. I'm glad to see Allied returning.
Yeah,
yeah.
He had to step down from AFK Gaming. It was like 9 months ago, because of obviously health issues.
He had to stop casting as well, which was
a
shame. I enjoyed Allied's casting. I enjoyed Allied's playing and his casting. Like, he's one of the most liked people in the community, and I'm honestly really happy to see that he's feeling well enough to come back into the scene.
Yeah, it's been a long road since what happened, and to see him making a steady recovery and see him back into a playing sense is phenomenal news. So we all wish him the best on trying to get back to full health.
Yeah. So, and this is going to be, it's good to see him back in there. Good on him for getting back in, and hopefully it all stays good and we see him for a long time. So that's I think that's all of NA done now, isn't it? So,
yeah, that very minimal in terms of NA news, but Europe is where it was really at.
EU is the party house. You know, everyone knows that EU makes the big plays, and we also make the big changes. So let's get the first things going on, and we're going to talk about Obey.
So earlier in the week, I think it was last week even, Emilzy tweeted out that he was trying out for Obey and that he wasn't going to be joining them. Turns out that was a complete troll just to dissuade rumors, and he is joining Obey as the support, and Maniac is also going to be joining Obey as the solo laner. The return of Maniac.
The return of Maniac.
This is probably one of the biggest talking points of the week.
I would be excited, right, about seeing a person come back into everything, but a few times now we've seen people come back, and I'm going to be brutally honest here, it was quite disappointing. Because we saw Game Hunter come back, for God Hunter, ages ago, and the return wasn't quite as dramatic as we were hoping it was going to be. I'm hoping Maniac's return sets a bigger fire in our hearts.
Well, I think two things. Game Hunter's return, whilst it didn't set the world alight, he was still far away the best player on his team, which was Torpedo at the time. And he still did what he did before, which was win solo lane and tried to help his team out from there. Maniac, he's been gone for a lot less and has a similar playstyle in terms of just bullying out the opposition and trying to be that dominating presence in the mid game. So I think this return is going to be better for Maniac and for Obey as a whole. That they now have this one person they can also rely on. Not the same as Variety. I don't think they'll ever find a replacement like Variety. But this is certainly one of the best options they could have picked up. Oh
yeah, really good choice. I mean, like you said, Variety is one of, if not the best solo laner. So, I mean, you're going to have a hard time replacing him, but Maniac, good pickup. And Emilzy, we had him on the show a while back, didn't we? And like you said, he's a big troll, but he's a really good player and a really nice guy, so good pickup.
Yeah, and so Obey will be playing with that roster in the SPL in the next split, and will Funballer's new team, currently called Camel Riders EU, but the name is still subject to change.
I'm still disappointed if it didn't take my name.
Yeah, it was a good name.
It was a perfect date. It's a good name. Yeah, you'll understand why I suggested a perfect date with the actual team members of. Let's quickly get that up. So in solo lane we have Azalea. Everyone knows Azalea. Jungle will be Vicherio. Mid will be Lobster. ADC will be Funballer. And the support will be Big Man Tings. And I swear to God, if someone says Big Man Plays when casting, I'm gonna lynch someone.
It's usually F-Dot. He's the one who usually says that.
I remember we used to say it a lot when he was in EGL.
Yeah.
No, it's Big Man Tings with Big Man Plays, and you're like, you need to stop using that. But
I use it once, maybe twice during the split. Then that's it.
Yeah, it's done its course. But it's a good team. It's a really nice team.
It's a good team, and they're going to be taking the bipolar method to a spot in the SPL.
The bipolar methods. Okay.
Well, yeah, because
Oh wait, yeah, it's because it's got. It is Hold on. Is it essentially their roster?
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's why we got that. Yeah, it's a. I mean, I'm looking for good things, and if they're taking bipolar method spot, it's good for them.
Yeah, so that's Camel Riders EU. Again, name is subject to change.
There were so many suggestions. There were so many suggestions for it.
If you could think of a name that you would like them to have, why don't you tweet at Fumble or why don't you tweet at Lobster? You might be able to convince them to change it to your name and win yourself some gems. But over on the other side of things, Dignitas. There's news on them that they were not going to sign on another contract with their original team. So they are, for now, leaving the Smite scene, although there are rumors that they are coming back with a different roster. But the spot is going to go to a team called Novus Orsa. And the team looks strong.
Yeah, I need to get it up again. Second, hold on. The damn notes aren't working for me. The team themselves are looking really good. I mean, the Ducky, Frostjack, Shadow Nightmare, Flurry Q, and Frezzy. That's a good team. That's a really good team. So, yeah, I think they're going to do quite well.
Yeah. So it's the same solo jungler mid as was from Dignitas, but now it's Flurry Q and Frezzy going to be in the duo lane instead of Suntouch. For those of you interested, Suntouch is staying on with Dignitas as a streamer. So obviously, congratulations to him for still staying with one of the most well-recognized esports brands out there. But back to the team, Flurry Q and Frezzy are the new duo lane, and this is the big talking point about this team. Flurry Q, as a sub primarily for Cringe Crew in the past, he hasn't had too much in the way of SPL experience, but he does know the scene well enough, and I believe he will be able to perform. The question is, has Frezzy learned from his mistakes with Obey?
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, Frezzy was it's Pandalike or Frezzu. He's does so many name changes, I can't keep up. I mean, he needs to have figured out a few things, doesn't he? Really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, hopefully we won't see the same Sylvanas performance. But I mean, he's a decent player as long as he's managed to get into the right mindset. I think he's going to be. I think he's going to do fine with Novus Orsa.
Yeah, it's. I think, like we talked about it before when he left the roster.
Yeah.
Of Obey, that he needed to be in a roster where he could have fun, be himself, whilst also still play it serious and a high level. And I think this team could be the calling card for him, and the way that he sort of makes his own play style, rather than try to conform to one that the team needs.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of his big things, wasn't it? Like we saw it at Worlds, where it didn't seem like he was able to play in the style he wanted, did he? And his team obviously, prioritizing the Sylvanas over the sort of thing he'd like to do. But I think, like you said, with this team, he's got more of a chance to be the style he wants to be, rather than being forced into that, into the specific role that they need at that time.
Yeah, so they're going to be playing under the Dignitas spot, so it's now called Novus Orsa. So obviously, it's a good name, and we can't wait to see how they perform in the spring split as well. But this is one of the only news coming out so far for a spot that's involved in relegation. So that's going to be Cringe Crew's spot. Obviously, the Cringe Crew roster disbanded quite a while ago, and people have gone off to new teams. People have gone off and stayed on this team as well. And it's the new name is called A New Beginning. Although they were thinking about a New Game Plus as their new name as well. And honestly, I like New Game Plus a lot more.
I like New Game Plus.
Yeah.
You got to the end of the game and you're carrying on, and now you've got better stuff than you started with originally, and that's what these guys are doing. They're starting with better stuff.
Oh, and while we quickly run through this roster, one name might stick out quite a lot for you guys. Especially for Darkkai.
One name. A lot of names here.
I know, but one name will stick out a lot more than the others. So first of all, we have No Numbers in the solo lane, Repikas in the jungle, Kiro in mid, Game Hunter as the hunter, and Murder as the support.
That's a jump for Game Hunter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's.
I mean, he's always been known as a solo laner, and now he's ADC. That's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy.
It's a good roster, and for those of you who don't know who No Numbers is, because he's the new blood in this roster. He hasn't had any SPL experience going into this, but he has been playing in the Challenger Cup at a very, very high level. Was even on the Season 3 full split winners Burrito.
Yeah.
And he was playing up to some of the biggest solo laners out there during practices that they had, and even during the LAN itself. He was one of the standout players during the full Challenger Cup, and to see him on an SPL roster, well, not SPL roster just yet, they're currently involved in relegations. To see him onto a roster like this is absolutely fantastic news for him.
Yeah, it's really good news for No Numbers, and the team itself is looking good. Like I said, I was a bit unimpressed with Game Hunter's return to Smite, but he's a good player nonetheless. And seeing him as ADC is going to be interesting, or as the Hunter role, because as we know, we very rarely see ADCs in the ADC role nowadays. But it's a very good team. I mean, Murder on support as well, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
What, are you not feeling Murder as much, or?
I mean, I'm a big fan of Panda-like instead.
Okay. Is that how we're going to do it?
No.
I mean,
but yeah, they do have similar playstyles to Murder and Frezzy. Yeah. They will get into your face, they will play aggressively, and they will try and put you on tilt. So it's again a very, very aggressive duo lane, which will play into Murder's benefits, will allow him to then start rotating around the map as he so chooses. So really, all eyes are going to be on Game Hunter and on No Numbers going into the relegations on this squad.
Yeah, I've got high expectations of them. I'm hoping No Numbers can do well on this team as well.
Yeah, and don't forget, Defiance is also going to be on this squad as their coach/manager. In case you're wondering where he went, he's there.
He's there. That's where Defiance is.
Yeah. So there are a couple rosters that are still, as of yet, unknown. Those are the teams of Sanguine, Elevate, Enemy, and Noble. 3 of those teams are involved in relegation, so we should have those names coming in incredibly quickly. But Sanguine roster still, as of yet, unknown. That's the one that everybody's still waiting for, as they are still in the SPL with the spot there.
I mean, is there anyone we're thinking is going to turn up? I mean, are there any names that stand out that aren't in a team at the moment? Putting you on the spot for AJ.
Melissa would certainly be a name out there that people would immediately throw out as not being involved in the Challenger Cup. Dark Dodo, he was involved in the Challenger Cup as well for the first week, but his team wasn't there for the second week. There's still a lot of potential teams that could form under the Sanguine banner, and to see who will come out of it. We're just gonna have to wait and see, because there's so much to speculate there.
Yeah, I mean, we could see names we've not seen before as well coming into that. It has happened before, and we have seen some fair success from that as well. So just keep your eyes open, guys. Sanguine's roster will eventually be known, and I'm hoping it's going to be a good one. I mean, with the rosters that have been coming up recently, it's got to be a good one.
Yeah, I can't wait. But so
you're
yeah,
gonna have to wait, AJ. You're gonna have to wait.
Yeah. I have to wait. It's Elevate, Enemy, and Noble, as I said before, are involved in the relegations, which are going to be happening this weekend of the 11th and 12th of February, with the SPL kicking off the weekend afterwards. So if you're still waiting for the SPL action to kick off, don't worry, it's just around the corner. Going to have to wait for less than a week from now.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing how the pros and how the other players are thinking of starts now, and what happens and what they're going to prioritize. Because like before we even started broadcasting, I was saying for one start and you were saying for the other. I think you're right, but I'm not going to back down, and I think my start works too.
And there are so many different starts out there, all with their benefits, all with their drawbacks, that all of them can be considered meta, but at the same time, all of them can be considered off meta.
Yeah, there isn't a meta right now.
No,
we've been going for a week.
Right now, it's just do this. Okay, that works.
That works. Let's do this. Yeah. I mean,
that's pretty much it.
that is pretty much for Cope Matter. Does it work? Yes, use it.
Yeah, the open bracket did finish 2 weeks of competition. Have come and gone. So the top 3 teams will be advancing into the relegations. The 4th place team will go into the Challenger circuit, and any other team will have to try and fight their way into that circuit through the Combine, which is the new name for what the Challenger Cup used to be. So let's kick things off with the North American hopefuls. 6 teams enter, 3 teams will go to the SPL, with the other 3 teams joining the 4th place open bracket team for that 4-team Challenger circuit. So, the North American teams. Cope is still the problem. Astral Authority, In Memory of Gabe, Enemy, Neelam, and Noble Esports. So, a couple of rosters there still, as of yet, unknown, Enemy and Noble. But the other rosters, Cope is still the problem. Astral Authority, In Memory of Gabe, and Neil M. All of which we do have rosters for. So we're going to quickly just take you through a couple of them. So Astral Authority and In Memory of Gabe, those are the 2 which you may be the most unfamiliar with. Neelam, by the way, is the team that has taken over the Envy spot and will feature Kiki So Cheeky as the prominent name there.
He is so cheeky. Kiki. Have you spoken to him? Have you spoken to the guy?
No, I have not, but I hate you for using the pun that everyone uses.
Well, you can't really call him Kiki, can you? Because he's not. He's cheeky. Anyway, carry on.
So we're quickly going to blast through the Astral Authority and In Memory of Gabe squads and then have a bit of a talk about who we think will qualify from the North American side into the SPL. So Astral Authority are made up of Mango in the solo lane, Fine OK in the jungle, Shaker in mid, Famous 8 as the ADC, and Left Syndrome as the support. And In Memory of Gabe, who won the open bracket, they're going to be Walrus in the solo lane, Sinosure in the jungle, Hurrywin in mid, Snoopy and Ionic for the dual lane of Hunter and support, and it's a fantastic squad.
It's a very good squad. Yeah. Memory of Gabe, watching them play as well was just ridiculous. That's such a good team.
They finished first in both weeks, so this is certainly the best team coming out of the open bracket. Whether they're the best team in the relegations, we'll still have to see, because of course Enemy and Noble are still yet to announce their rosters. Neelam roster is, well, it features Kiki, so you know that is going to be something up their sleeves. There's going to be some form of I don't know, what's the word? Some form of confusion going on in the back in terms of their strats.
Yeah. I mean, the thing we've got to bear in mind with these relegations is Enemy has always been a team you never expect.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff that happens with Enemy every damn time, I don't know what it is, but Pain Deviant always seems to magic up something, and it just works. And I mean, now he's got the chance to pick, 3 other guys he needs to pick now?
I think so. If the roster features 3 of the former 5 players, then he'll need to find 2 more people.
Okay, so if he needs 2 more. But I mean, he's done it before. He's found people which we've never heard of, and we've seen them play amazingly well. I think Enemy is definitely one you should watch out for. And the moment you start discounting Enemy just because you've got, these guys, we don't even know who they are, they're not going to put up much of a problem, that's the moment that Enemy shows you just how good they are.
It was happened twice now, and I think 2 things. One, people are caught on and caught wise to the trickery that is Enemy, and they will not underestimate them anymore. And 2, the reason they were so successful, the reason they were able to surprise people as they did, was because you had Pain Deviant in the support role, and he just led the fights. He just led everything. And everybody just did exactly what he said to the letter, and it worked. Now that he's pretty much confirmed as the coach instead of the support play, they no longer have that authoritative voice from the support role, that leader coming out in the squad.
That's a fair point, isn't it? I mean, he was the shot caller. He was the person everyone listened to in Enemy, and now as a coach, he can keep his information and all of his knowledge going out to the rest of his team. But the big question is and are the members that are currently there, are they going to end up being the shot caller, or is someone new going to go in there and become the shot caller? And that's a big question on my mind.
Yeah, so with Enemy and Noble still not announcing their rosters, I think one of those two will go through, and I think I'm leaning quite a lot towards Enemy. And out of the other four, two to go through, In Memory of Gabe definitely are going to be one of the teams going to be qualifying in my eyes. They're probably going to be the one out of any that wins the relegations. Because don't forget, these teams will play each other in a best of 2 sets, so 10 games total for each team. I can see In Memory of Gabe going 10-0.
No doubt. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. In Memory of Gabe, good team. Really good team. I can't imagine them having any real problems. So I think we're going to see one of those guys going through. I think Enemy, like you said, the other one, the next one's kind of up in the air, isn't it? Yeah. Really. It's very difficult to put it in. I mean, not knowing Noble's team makes it pretty difficult to judge whether it's going to be them or not. But
I mean, I don't know if it is going to be Noble, considering that last full split, obviously, there was the Gauntlet. And in the Gauntlet, the bottom SPL team had to fight against the top Challenger Cup team as a way of the Challenger Cup trying to fight their way into Super Regionals.
Yeah.
They lost to the Challenger Cup team at that point, and that Challenger Cup team, Most Wanted Esports, didn't even qualify for these relegations. I think they finished 7th overall in the brackets. So, so in my eyes, I don't think Noble are going to be qualifying. Again, they could prove me wrong.
Things can change.
Things can change.
We've seen it happen before. We've seen huge improvements as well. So,
yeah.
I mean, you can't count them out yet. I mean, and I think as well, if people have that same mindset going into this and they go up against Noble, there's a certain point where you have to give a certain level of respect to your opponent, and if you stop giving them the respect, there's a chance that Noble can prove you completely wrong.
Yeah. For me, the teams are going to go through In Memory of Gabe, Enemy, and I'm leaning very, very slightly towards Neelam over Astral Authority. Those are my 3 teams: In Memory of Gabe, Enemy, and Neelam.
I mean, I'm going to agree with In Memory of Gabe and Enemy. I kind of want to say Astral Authority, but whether I'm going to give them the curse because I'm the one who seems to be cursed here. That means I'm going to go Astral Authority and Neelam's going to get in. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty much given that In Memory of Gabe and Enemy are the 2 other big 2 to watch.
So if you only get to catch one set of the many sets that get played in North America, make sure that Astral Authority versus Neelam is the one you watch, and you'll probably have a good idea of who goes through in that respect.
Yeah.
But over to Europe, and this is ones that we're more familiar with, me and Darkkai.
Well, yeah, kind of. But I mean, for EU teams like Mr. Powerhouse, it's the ones we end up watching the most of, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you know anything about a lot of the games, is some games that happen, and we're there wanting to watch them, and it's so late in the day for us that we can't watch them all. So if I have a choice, like EU is on a Saturday and NA is on a Sunday, I'm going to watch the EU games. And so we know a fair amount about those. But the teams in the relegations for EU, we have Dutch Myrmidons, Last Minute Monsters, VNT, Variety's new team, one to watch, Cyclone, GG, Elevate, and A New Beginning. Or New Game Plus.
Of course, A New Beginning / New Game Plus, we did talk about the roster before, the one with no numbers, Repcast, Game Hunter, and the likes. So, out of all these teams, Elevate are the ones that don't officially have a roster that's played a competitive game very recently. Cyclone GG, they've announced that they're all staying together, and A New Beginning, they announced their roster in the past week. And the other 3 teams, Dutch Myrmidons, Last Minute Monsters, and Variety's new team, played through the open bracket. And it doesn't look like anybody is changing from those rosters. So
we've got those 3, Dutch Myrmidons, Last Minute Monsters, and VNT. Those are some good teams.
Some very good teams.
I honestly think with the EU teams, now with NA, you can generally say that certain teams are probably in excess, like in excess of the lead. EU tends to be a little bit closer.
Yeah,
I feel, unless you take into account energy, ignore energy. Energy are the exception to the rule, because no one can ever keep up of those. But I think in terms of our general teams, we're a lot closer, and it's very difficult looking at these to decide which 3 have a higher chance of going through. I think Variety's new team, no doubt. The others, I'd say it's anyone's game.
Well, I've had a lot of thought about this, obviously, as Cyclone's coach.
Of course, of course.
I've obviously had a long think about this, and...
You think Cyclone GG is going to be top?
Well, yeah, obviously.
Obviously, you know.
So, obviously, I think Cyclone GG, Variety's new team, are going to go through, and out of the other four, I'm honestly going to hold on to my course for that for now. Just a strategic hold.
A strategic hold.
Yeah.
Is there anyone there that you're actually worried about as you Cyclone going against? Apart from Variety's new team.
Out of everybody else, no.
Okay.
Variety's new team is the one we're still like, yeah, we can do well, we can possibly not do well, but we're still confident going into all the games that we will come out with a 2-0.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, Elevate is still a bit unexpected too, isn't it? So.
Well, no one. Well, Elevate's roster, they do have a roster, but they haven't announced it yet.
Yeah, we're not allowed to say.
No. Well, you don't even know it.
I don't know. You're not allowed to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, having seen what these teams are capable of, it's very difficult to call which ones are going to go through.
Yeah.
Like AJ said, VNT is pretty much a given. Cyclone GG is a good team as well, so I'm gonna take AJ's side and say possibly yes. But choosing the third one is a much harder call than narrowing it down to 2 from NA. It's anyone's for EU, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, every single one of these rosters does have their star player, the one that you are looking at to make sure the team wins. I mean, for Dungeon Webinars, you do have Captain Bass, or just known as Bass recently. Last Minute Monsters. Definitely have to look at Mrs. Stefan in the mid lane.
Mr. Stefan. Yeah. He used to be EGL, didn't he?
Yeah, he used to be, and...
it's so good seeing all of these people who we used to cast suddenly, coming up in the world. It's great to see.
Yeah.
So good. It puts a smile on your face.
Yeah, there used to be like a little joke going around that he could only play one god at a time. First of all, it was Isis, and then it was Kronos, and then it was Vulcan, but he seems to be able to bring out pretty much anything in mid lane now, and with the ability he has on those specific gods that I mentioned before, now transitioning to a wider range of gods than just one, he's a phenomenal player that could find himself in the SPL very soon.
Oh yeah. So he's definitely someone to watch, Mr. Staffen. He's a good player, really good player.
And obviously, the other teams, you gonna have to wait to see how they perform in the relegations. And honestly, if any of these teams don't qualify for the SPL, they can consider themselves unlucky that it's a very strong relegations year for EU.
It's a very strong relegations, yeah. And these, I really think these want any of these matches. If I don't even think I can say which match to watch, because all of these matches I reckon is going to be full of action and full of EU teams just beating the hell out of each other. It's going to be some good matches.
I mean, with how close this tournament has been to the Season 4 launch, it really comes down to which team has been able to adapt to Season 4 the quickest.
Yeah.
And in that regard, the SPL teams do have an advantage, because since the PTS came out, they were scrimming on the PTS, whilst the Challenger Cup teams, they've had to scrim on live client consistently just because the open brackets were on Season 3 as well.
Yeah.
So they only really had a couple of days extra practice beyond the live cycle of Season 4 right now, whilst the rest of the teams, they had a couple more weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah. And we don't even have ranked at the moment either, do we? So we can't see we can't see that sort of thing. Ranked has been disabled for a week, just to give everyone a chance to learn, which makes sense. I know some people were pretty unhappy about it, but I'm of the mindset of, well, would you rather have potatoes that don't know what they're doing, or potatoes?
I mean, Ranked is going to come back up, by the way, this Monday. I think it was at 10 a.m. EST, which would be Hi-Rez time. And I saw a great on the Reddit thread about this, which was 6th of February at 10 p.m. equals F6 at 10.
Okay, that's great. That's so accurate.
Yep.
We gave up first blood F6.
Pretty much.
That sums up Ranked. Are you going to join Ranked the moment it goes, or are you going to wait a fortnight?
I'm not going to wait a fortnight, because that's just a bit too much. But I'm not going to jump into it straight away, because I think if it goes up at the time I'm expecting it to, then I'll probably still be at work.
Okay.
So I'm definitely going to jump into it as often as possible though this season, because last season I didn't really play rank too much.
We've got the rewards as well, haven't we, for this season?
Yeah.
I think I was looking at it, and it's you win 75 games. So you play qualifying, you get something. I think it's win. I think the first one is win 10 games or something. You get something. Win 75 games, and you get a god skin specific for that split, I think. And then 150 wins gives you something else. So it's definitely something to bear in mind, and you can actually get decent rewards for it this time.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that they said they were going to do, which was entice people to come back and join in the ranked queues.
I mean, having a bigger player base for ranked isn't a bad thing, I don't think.
Yeah, because with a bigger player base, you get more concise matches.
Better matchmaking.
You get people who are closer to your skill level, rather than them having to drag people up or down, depending on where you are.
I think the thing that's going to cause the most salt is qualifying. Because now you can qualify into low diamond?
You can qualify into anywhere. I think you can qualify anywhere up to Diamond 1. You still have to work your way into Masters.
You can't qualify in Masters or Grandmasters. Okay, cool. Well, you couldn't qualify into Grandmasters no matter how hard you tried, really, but...
So, yeah, there's no longer the Gold 1 cap, so... It will probably take into account your position from last season and your current casual elo, because everything got hard reset.
Wasn't it a hard reset? So why would it take that into account?
Oh, it's still...
Because there were people who were in Diamond Tier who weren't Diamond Tier.
I mean, this is just me spitballing an idea here.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying this is true. I'm not saying this is fact. I'm saying that this might be what happened. This might be what will happen. You might get matched on what your placement was last season and your current casual elo, because that's what you would have been playing to get used to the season.
That makes sense. That means I'm not high end. Not that I'm high anyway. But
so yeah, if you think about playing ranked this season, best of luck to you, and you will get some rewards for it. Just don't pick the same god over and over again, because those god-specific leaderboards are just a deterrent for good matchmaking.
Yeah, don't... I like the idea of trying to encourage people to play things, but just don't try and be the world's best Arachne, please. I like Arachne, but please don't.
I love Arachne.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're mid, don't choose Arachne. Choose something viable. I want to win. So, but...
obviously that Season 4 patch has come and gone, and it's received mixed reactions, especially with some of the more specific changes to items and gods.
Yeah.
But they do have a chance... They do have a chance to rectify some of those problems that have come up in this patch on the next patch, which will be the 4.2 patch notes, which should be being released this Wednesday, if they stick to the same schedule they have done in the past.
Yeah. I mean, but they've already released a hotfix, haven't they? And I'm so glad they released that hotfix. Because 40% movement speed Skadi is obnoxious.
Oh, that Skadi was the only Skadi was the only ADC I was facing for a while, because people were just abusing the bug, and they were still losing.
Oh my god, that bug was hilarious.
I saw you abuse it once.
I had to try it. I had to see.
No. You can't talk about abusing bugs when you abuse a bug yourself.
I played it for one game and then refused to play it anymore, because...
That's one game too many.
It was one game too many, I'm going to be honest. Because that was actually ridiculous, and I felt terrible for doing that. Although it was pretty funny outrunning a Gabony Hebo on his carpet. But it was pretty obnoxious. And yeah, I mean, having done that, if I read up about bugs anymore, I'm just never going to use them, because I actually felt really bad doing that. So there you go. Don't do it, guys. Don't if you hear about a bug, don't try it.
Yeah.
Because that's just... Yeah, it's not fair. It's not fair in a grand scheme, and like I said, I felt terrible. But I'm a decent person, not a dick. So
if you get found abusing bugs, like if you just use it consistently over and over again, then you do violate the terms of service, which means you could have your account banned.
Yep, or at least a small short ban or a few month ban or something. So bear that in mind, guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
But obviously, season 4 patch notes came and went. Season 4 patch notes, second version 4.2. In case that's how they number it. They go 4 point whatever patch notes it is in season 4. So 4.2 coming up. Touted to be a new god released.
That's the Japanese Kappa god, right?
Japanese god King Kappa.
Yeah.
It's going to be a Japanese guardian to fill out the one class per Pantheon thing that they've got going on right now, with the exception of the Celts, who are going to receive a couple more gods later on.
It's going to be, wasn't it? We're going to see some Hindu love this year as well, won't we?
Yeah, there's going to be one, maybe two Hindu gods. Maybe two Hindu gods.
It's going to be interesting. This is going to be... Yeah. I mean, we could see some... Like, now we've got all these Pantheons in as well, we've got some really interesting gods that can appear. They don't even have to be mainstream or well-known gods, like we're seeing with the King Kappa. Apparently in the Japanese lore, he fills a very minor role, but in Smite, he could have quite an interesting build or interesting kit or design, or... I'm looking forward to seeing what Hi-Rez choose to do, because their god designs are actually generally pretty good. So,
and if you want to know what the Hi-Rez interpretation of the Kappa looks like, just go to the Joust map blue buffs, and those are actually Kappas.
Wait, what?
Yeah, those are meant to be designed all around Kappas.
The tortoises with the snake tail?
Yeah.
Why are they based... They're not... What?
I mean, that's what people have been saying. That's what I've been
told.
Those people
are wrong. It looks like some sort of... I don't know. That's not a Kappa. I can tell you that now. That's not a Kappa. Unless you're trolling me, in which case you're a bitch. But but no, I mean, the King Kappa idea is pretty cool. I want to see what they're doing now. I want to see what they're bringing in.
But there are many different interpretations of the Kappa. I think one is just like this almost bird-looking humanoid. I've seen that one spouted out quite a few times. I don't know if they're going to run with that, but it would look frightening to see that.
Do you get the odd feeling that because of Hi-Rez's partnership with Twitch, that they're going to do a Kappa skin?
They have to.
They have to.
I mean, all I know is...
Or at least give us a Kappa award. That'd be hilarious.
All I know is the second that he gets shown on patch notes, the chat's going to be spammed with Kappas.
Oh, yeah.
The patch notes are probably going to be called Kappa.
Oh, yeah, you know that.
And...
But probably, if they show anything, it's going to have Kappas all over the place.
Yeah.
This is what they're like. I mean, we've had a meme skin in Skadi, so Smite.
I mean, but this one isn't directly related to the meme.
No. But if it's called a Kappa, you may as well roll with it.
Yeah.
Go with the memes.
He's going to be introduced in the 4.2 patch, most likely. But aside from the new god, which we might see, what other changes do you think we really should be looking out for in terms of what's strong right now, what's weak right now, what needs to potentially be fixed?
I think... so first off, we've got what is that new item called, which makes you immune to pulls and stuff for 90 seconds?
Stone of Gaia.
Yeah. I think that's gonna have something change with its interaction with Ares, or Ares' ult is gonna have some rewording, because at the moment Ares' ult is a pull. It says it pulls them towards him, but it seems that it's treated as a teleport. Which means that Stone of Gaia doesn't actually proc, so Ares can still pull you. So whether that's just a bug between the interaction or whether it's intended, because Ares pull isn't technically a pull, I'm not sure. I want to see how that's done.
I think it's intended, because if it was a pull, then people of varying distances would get to Ares at varying times.
Yeah.
But instead, if you're like an Athena and you've ulted to the other side of the map, and you and your Mercury, who's still punching the Ares, get ulted, you're next to Ares the exact same time when his ult ends. So, to me, that is a teleport and means that it shouldn't be affected by the current Stone of Gaia.
But if that's the case, maybe the wording should be changed on the Ares ability. Because it does clearly say, pulled.
Yeah.
And because this is the first time we've had an item which procs on a pull, I think or specifically on if something specifically worded as a poll, I think they need to look at that a little bit. At least change the wording or something just to make it a bit easier to understand how it interacts.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of Ares players out there would argue otherwise because there'll be yet another item that's just there to stop Ares ult.
I mean, Ares is pretty much irrelevant nowadays anyway. But
not so much.
You've got about, at least 5 other supports which are probably higher tier.
Yeah, but there's still room for Ares. There's always going to be room for Ares as your aggressive
guardian. There's more room for Ares, but he's not as relevant as other supports.
No, definitely not.
You wouldn't prioritize an Ares unless you've got a specific strategy.
Yeah.
And I think in casuals or ranked, you're never going to have that specific strategy, so...
Well, casuals, you are going to prioritize Ares because you want to kill people.
Bloody pub stomps.
Yeah,
It's the same reason you choose Anubis. Oh, no one knows how to deal with Anubis. Oh dear. But in terms of other things I think they're going to change, I think Kronos is going to get a little bit of love. Kronos isn't seeing as much play as he did before, mostly because that Fatalis or Hastalis change on his 2 seems to have made him a lot less liked by the community in general. I don't know how you feel about Kronos or...
I think that he had a very specific build beforehand, which was boots, and then like stacking out some like Doomable Book of Thoth into Winged Blade, Demonic Grip, Obsidian Shard, and then finally Royal Tahuti.
Okay.
And that was the Kronos build. Obviously, there were variations of it with selling an item here or there, and then buying a different item here or there, but that was the core. And when he got rid of his Fatalis, it meant you had to sacrifice that Winged Blade to get yourself.
Yeah.
But what that also does, it means that he is now severely affected by slows. And one of the benefits of Wingblade, and one of the reasons why he bought it so often, was because his mobility wasn't really there. So getting that extra bit of movement speed and getting that slow immunity really helped him survive sort of the early mid-game pressure of enemy hunters and supports, and maybe even mid laners that rotated, and allowed him to go into the late game. So to change that much and then not give him sort of like slow immunity somewhere really has hurt him to the point where he may not be picked at all.
Yeah, so I'm expecting to see some love for Kronos.
Yeah.
I think I get the idea of removing the Hastalis effect from ranged gods.
Yeah.
But I think with certain gods they need to look at it a little bit. And I think they just did a catch-all. It's similar to the Great Warrior nerf.
Yeah.
If you remember it, where they just did a blanket nerf of everything and then tried to do iterative buffs to try and get them back up to speed. I think we're going to see that with Kronos. I'm seriously hoping we're going to see another nerf to Freya, because she's still ridiculous. Even with a slightly lower Fatalis effect now, doesn't have quite as much attack speed and doesn't have pen again, which is good. But I still think Freya's going to see a little bit of a change. In my eyes, I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know.
I know exactly what they're going to do to Freya.
Buffer.
No, they're gonna remove a slight bit of damage off her ult late game as well.
That's not even the problem.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're gonna do to Freya.
Unless you're Atamaxia, who thinks that Freya's now dead because of the lost 80 damage on her ult.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what they're gonna do, and they're gonna say problem fixed. Freya is no longer a problem.
Honestly, I think the big issue with her is having the bloody frostbound effect on her irradiate.
I can see it being a problem. I think she just does a bit too much damage for the amount of items that she has to buy. All she has to get on is boots and Fatalis. Boom.
Yeah. She can now chunk you. No one can 1v1 her. And the fact that she isn't she the only AD where even if you're 4 levels ahead of her, you still can't 1v1 her.
You can't really go into a 1v1 against Hui if he's got your mark on you and you're like standing in a place where he can double, maybe even triple bounce you. But aside from that very specific situation, there's nobody else you can really do that to now.
Yeah. So Freya's still ridiculous.
Yeah.
Offhand, I can't think of much more. I mean, there are probably certain items which will probably be changed or tweaked, because some of them are just irrelevant now. But
yeah, I can honestly see them doing something with the jungle, like sort of pushing back the spawn timers maybe 5 seconds, or bringing them closer to the beginning by 5 seconds or something, just to give people a more clear indication of where the game should be starting.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of changing the spawn timers of the camps was to dissuade invades, and that sort of tied into the Wrath nerf as well. But now we're at the point where if you start in lane and you get put behind, you are still going to get invaded anyway.
Yeah.
So you sort of need to study your buffs if you've got the disadvantageous clear, or if you're not going to get pressure, and even then you're still not going to secure your buffs.
Well, the thing you got to worry about as well is just how strong the purple buff is now in Conquest.
Yeah.
I mean, that buff is ridiculous. And if you're invaded and you lose that, you've got problems. Because if you take the purple... So say we started off, and you were relatively low clear, so you went into lane first. And we were relatively quick clear, so we went into jungle first, and we took purple buff. So say this is a duo example. And we take purple buff. And we've still got a ton of clear. So we then go into lane and we push you out. And we make you sit under your tower. And now we've got free reign to steal your purple buff, give that to the ADC, and then he's got a huge advantage in boxing while the support can go off and do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And that's just something you've got to be careful of, because the purple buff is too strong to lose. If you're invaded, you have to fight for that. And
it's strong early game, but as the game goes on, it becomes less and less worthwhile.
Yeah.
So if you're securing your first spawn of the purple buff, then you've sort of done your job in making sure you've got the most value out of it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's the early thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Any comp that's really early game gets a huge boon from the purple buff. And a comp which is struggles early game, it helps them a little bit, but it's definitely a more snowbally buff than it was before.
Yeah.
Although, does it not frustrate you that there are 3 versions of the bloody purple buff?
Oh, what's the third one?
Apophis.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't really count Apophis as a purple buff because
I
know,
it's
different.
still a purple ring. That's the thing that annoys me. But you've got a purple ring in Conquest, a purple ring in
Siege and Arena,
and a purple ring in Clash. Actually, on the note of Clash, they've got to rethink that center camp spawn time.
No, I like it.
What?
What?
You can have at least 2. You can have 2 people with red buff at the same time, can't you?
Oh, you mean like the spawn timers, not when Apophis spawns?
No. I'm talking about the red buff spawn.
Yeah, the spawn timers could stand to come down a bit, as well as the fact that Clash now has passive experience gain. Because
was that intentional?
The whole idea of Clash was that it was there to transition players from Arena to Conquest.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to get that if it's essentially Arena 2.0, where you get consistent fighting with a couple lanes of minions, some buffs, and passive experience spawning. You're not going to get it like that.
No. I think there were big questions when Clash first came out, weren't there, about this new version of Clash, where the experience spooling was right. Because the speed you can get to 20 now is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, what? What is it?
There's no real point on getting early game gods in Clash now, because they're just going to be irrelevant within 3 minutes.
I mean, you get to late really quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's meant to be a transition to Conquest, but it's no longer a transition to Conquest.
It's Arena 2.0.
It is Arena 2.0, and I think we need to think about what they're doing with that a little bit. Because currently speaking, the spawning is too high. The mid camp or the mid red camp spawns far too quickly. And Apophis needs a bit more of a warning when he spawns.
Yeah. Because
the number of times I've been in the middle fighting someone, and then you get wah, and before your brain even recognizes that means Apophis has spawned, and you're dead. You've taken 1500 damage.
Yeah, 1500 true damage.
It's ridiculous. I have seen 3 people die in a fight. There's been a fight, and then it's gone warp, and all 3 people have just died. It's ridiculous. Yep. It's actually ridiculous.
So that definitely needs to. So there's quite a few things we'd like to see on these patch notes.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff is either a buffer nerf, and then obviously a couple changes here and there. But I suppose we have a tiny bit of time left. What's your thoughts on Season 4 so far, in terms of how it's going for you?
I'm enjoying it more than the beginning of Season 3. Because if you remember, like a year ago when Season 3 started, I was very disconnected from it.
Yeah.
And I was having a very hard time getting into it, so I left Smite for a bit. But Season 4, I mean, the changes to everything, they've definitely got me more interested in seeing how it goes. Like, I really want to know how people start. Like, I mean, how you start the game will dictate how the pace goes, but at the moment there doesn't seem to be a properly wrong way of starting. So I'm enjoying that. I'm not enjoying certain gods being changed. Hell, I mean, I still prefer old hell to new hell, but that's just me. And certain gods being, I don't know, certain gods not being as popular as they once were, which is a shame. But you get that things happen. I mean, at least it's nice to see that Jing Wei has been changed a little bit. She's not as bad as she used to be. As in, not as stupidly good as she used to be, but Freya is still an annoyance. I'm glad to see that they've changed certain items. Kronos Pendant is interesting now. It's kind of a weird one. And Spear of Desolation has a little bit more relevance than the original PTS version Spear of Desolation. Still not as relevant as the old Spear of Desolation, but, you know, we've got some really nice items. I'm actually enjoying playing Anubis at the moment as well. Not using any new items, just using Anubis.
I think the fact that a lot more items right now have cooldown reduction gives more variety to the healer builds. Because before you had to get Breastplate of Valor, you had to get Kronos Pendant for 40% CDR, or you went Breastplate of Valor was a must-have on your healing mages, because the fact that it offered you protection is 20% CDR, so it was a no-brainer. But now that like everything has CDR, including probably one of my favorite changes to one of the items, Shield of Regrowth, is now a item that anybody can get, not just physicals, but also gives you 20% CDR now rather than the 10% it was beforehand.
It's much better pickup, isn't it? I mean, I know everyone was complaining earlier on that everything now has CDR, and you can kind of see where the complaints are. But now we're seeing a fair variety in how people are building. Like, I used to, when I was playing certain gods, I'd be like, oh, I need to build Valor. I need to build Breastplate of Valor. And now I'm sitting there going, no, actually I don't. I can build something else. And it's nice to be able to just do something other than going, gotta build boots, gotta build breastplate. Well, now you still gotta build boots, but you don't have to build into breastplate. You can do something else.
Yeah.
And I'm liking, like, I mean, I know Pythax got a little bit of a change. I'm still I'm liking the new Pythax. It's a really good
I like
item.
it too.
It's a really good item. And just playing it on Anubis is crazy anyway when it comes to lifesteal, but the fact that now, if Anubis is in the fight, he's got a more of a benefit for being rooted in place for a lot of his attacks, because then the people around you have lifesteal as well and extra power. It's really good. I'm honestly enjoying Season 4 more than I was Season 3, and I've played probably more Conquest in this past week than I did for almost the entirety of Season 3. And that's saying something, that I've gone back to that. And I think a lot of the community is in a similar frame of mind, but more people seem to be playing Conquest. A lot of the players are still toxic as balls, but more people are playing Conquest now, and it's good to see.
Yeah.
How are your thoughts?
I think Season 4 right now offers a harder chance for new players to get into the game, because there's a lot more to learn, there's a lot more to do. Because before it was almost obvious you started the buffs because they spawned first.
Yeah. But
now with everything spawning at the same time and getting into the lane at the same time, it's difficult for a new player to get in to the Conquest meta.
Yeah, it's understandable, but it's more difficult, isn't it? I mean, there's so much happening. So
yeah, it's a lot more difficult for players to understand exactly why pro players are going to be doing this, that, and the other as well. But it also comes with the benefits of games that are going to be more exciting. There's no longer going to be these cookie cutter builds. It's no longer going to be this player has one lane because he managed to back first to get this item over the opponent, which hasn't got that item just yet. Now you can diversify your builds. If you're behind, you can get cheaper items, which offer you comparative stats to the more expensive items.
There's some really nice bridge items now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, was it Gladiator Shield?
Gladiator Shield's a really good item.
Yeah, it gives 15 physical power, 40 physical protection, 10% CDR, and the passive of every single time you hit an ability on an enemy god, you restore 2% of your max HP and mana.
Yeah.
And 1,700 gold.
It's a really good item. It's
Like,
crazy good.
If you feel like you're going to be behind in lane and you have sort of these ability-based gods like Sun Wukong or Shark or Hercules or something, you can buy that item if you're going to be put behind, because it's a lot cheaper than Breastplate of Valor, and it would offer you something that's stat-wise is cost-efficient to Breastplate of Valor.
Yeah. I mean, I do have one big niggle about the Conquest map at the moment. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it feels really cluttered. I think there's too much. Like, you've got the camps, fine, but then you've got the portal demon and the fire elementals that are on top of the fire giant. That's fine, but then you've got the gold fury with the mini furies.
Yeah.
I mean, when looking at a map, sometimes I can't quite realize that. I know I should know by the time of the match, but you look at the right side of the map and you're like, oh, are those the elementals? I'm going to go take those. Oh, wait, no, that's the portal demon. You know, it's because they've got similar icons. And I think, especially for new players, that could get a bit confusing. But I don't know. I don't know how you feel about the map in general.
The map does have a lot going on to it, but it's to try and take focus away from the mid lane.
Yeah.
Which I tend to say is a good idea, because, like, as it was in Season 3, it wasn't mid lane was by itself. It was there were 3 people in mid lane consistently, and you moved around to 3, and if you didn't, you were dead.
I'd like to say that that's changed, but I don't think it has. Most of my games, I've got 3 members of the opposite team in my lane if I'm mid. So,
but there's a lot more opportunities for these supports and junglers to gank, which means that picking these over-aggressive gods, ones which will dominate their lane, can also be putting you at a hindrance, because if you're going to be pushing in consistently and at their tail line consistently, in Season 3, you wouldn't really be ganked as much, but there would be, if the rotations did come to you, you had time to get out. Now, if the jungler's missing for large portions of the game, he may be ganking you consistently, rather than staying in mid lane before.
Yeah, I have seen a lot more support, of the jungle appearing in Dura lane recently.
Yeah.
And I think on the grand scheme of what Hi-Rez were trying to implement with this patch, I'd say for Season 4 they achieved their goal.
Yeah.
They've mixed up the builds. People aren't building the same things. They've mixed up the starts. They've mixed up what can go where. And I think on the grand scheme, the changes they've done have made Smite feel refreshed and less like you have to do a certain build, otherwise you're not viable. Now there's a lot more viability.
Well, they came into Season 4 with 2 main goals. One, diversify the starts, in terms of starter items, tier 1s especially.
Which I'd say they've done.
Yeah, they did that by introducing new items, changing up some of the items, as well as relics, and changing the costs of different tier 1 items. And the other change that they wanted to make was take the action away from the mid lane and spread it out across the map. And again, with the changes to the map, they've done that perfectly.
Yeah.
So overall, Hi-Rez's goals for the Season 4 patch were achieved. Whether it's the same goals that the player base wanted is a question for another time.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have to call it there.
Yep. So there we are, guys. That has been the Pantheon Podcast for this week. If you did enjoy the show, please do remember to give us likes and favourites on both SoundCloud and on YouTube. You can check out when we're recording and what we're going to be talking about, and suggest things to us on Twitter at Pantheon Podcast. Go check us out there. I think I'm the only one that can post on there, but don't worry about that. Everything on there is completely PG-13 and professional. You can also check me out on Twitter at Darkkai3 and on YouTube Darkkai3 Gaming, as Ian. I am Darkkai3. And you can also check out AJ on AlphaJackal on Twitter and AlphaJackal1 on Twitch.
Yeah, that is correct.
I keep forgetting you have a 1 on your Twitch thing. It's so confusing.
They wouldn't give me AlphaJackal.
It's better than what it used to be with your AJNB stuff.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's been us for the show, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next week. It's goodbye from me, Darkkai3.
That's goodbye from me, AlphaJackal. And yep, we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.